Hello there guys and welcome back to the channel. So today we are finally taking up that Warlock to rank 3. Warlock has been at rank 2 for absolutely forever, duped and waiting at SIG 200, and for the life of me I was not able to get a tier 5 tech class catalyst. But with the recent influx of selectors, I believe I have had to choose pretty much every single selector to be tech, and somehow I have made it to a fully formed tech catalyst because I just cannot seem to pull, even though I would gladly, this is the one class I would gladly take several more catalysts from. But as it's always completely random, the class that you want the most is the class that you are least likely to get. Anyways, enough of that. So here you can see that hit that rank up button. We're giving the Warlock all of the ISO that we can get, well, what he requires. Finally, he's at rank 3, and I'm absolutely loving it. Now, whilst I'm ranking him up here, I do not have suicides active. I will activate them for the fight examples later on in the video. And at rank 3, even unboosted whilst running Suicide Masteries, he dropped some seriously heavy numbers, much more than you'd expect from a Warlock, because when you are talking about Warlock, one thing that does not typically come into mind of, well, anyone, is big yellow numbers or great, amazing, insane damage output. Now, his damage output is actually much better than most people think it is, and it can be utilized in different ways with his signature ability, with his bleeds on heavy attack, with his level 2 cycling, or what have you. There are definitely more than one way how to play him, but also I will be trying to kind of emulate an important point that I think not too many people are aware about Warlock, and that obviously will work the best against the champions who have constant regeneration buff, and if we're absolutely honest, it works the best in Alliance War, because vast majority of the kind of like higher tier people use willpower in Alliance War, and that is extremely significant. So obviously taking a Warlock to rank 3 at SIG 200 gave me a significant prestige boost, and now we're just going to be fighting through some several fight examples. So first one, this one is from 641, I believe, and I just found this fight kind of particularly funny because Hulk Ragnarok here will trigger face me whenever I will passively degenerate him whenever he's trying to heal up, and that is also going to be kind of interesting and funny, mainly because even though face me is active, he still cannot heal from the face me, and that also ends up burning his power down. So here we can see that yeah, Warlock can definitely punch quite well here at this point already, especially when you get those arm breaks on. 10k mediums is definitely not too bad of a damage output for a utility champion, plus obviously those beautiful level 2s. Now then, I was trying to be too reckless. One of my favorite things to do with Warlock typically is to chain on a heavy attack after level 2 if opponent's below battle power. However, he had a smash hit active and I got tagged in the face. Now we're going to be jumping to 631, I believe. We're going to be taking Biohazard lane, but in this case I'm also going to be using Guillotine 2099, synergy with Vision, and obviously the Warlock's synergy with Vision as well. So basically, whenever I would be inflicted with a debuff that I am immune to, I gain a chunk of power and also a Fury buff. And that is actually kind of like a really solid synergy team, and it becomes quite useful quite often, especially when dealing against stuff like Acid Wash, because robots are typically immune, and getting that Fury buff unlocks a full damage. And yeah, that's one of the reasons why Warlock can work, for instance, for 6.22 Mr. Sinister. And let's just check out those heavy attack numbers. 29k, 40k heavy attack crit. So those two heavy attacks, if you put bleed aside, dealt 70,000. That's huge for two heavy attacks. Plus bleed is also inflicted. Obviously, that does quite a lot of damage. And so I think the claims that Warlock is a very soft punching character can be pretty much laid to rest. Yes, there are champions that hit harder, but put on some Suicide Masteries, drop a level 2, drop some heavy attacks, and you're going to see numbers just as good as any. So here we're going to be trying to emulate the same situation. I'm actually going to hit those 40k heavy attacks quite frequently. And keep in mind, this is without any boosts, just Suicide Masteries and very simple synergy team. Now here I did a little whoopsie. I did drop my level 2 into Ghost's block, but still, even without armor breaks, here we saw that heavy attack crit for 18k. Obviously armor breaks significantly increase the damage because those are quite substantial. So here we're going again, a couple of 10k crit there in the middle, finishing off with this 16k crit, and then obviously another juicy heavy attack. If we actually count the numbers in that special 2, it's about 70k with very few crits in between. And let's check out that heavy attack once again. Absolutely beautiful 51k on the dot. So yeah, Warlock is a noodle, right? He hits very weak, nothing to see there, right? Anyways, so now we can move on to the next fights. I don't think I'm gonna put up or see any kind of like amazing numbers in this one fight in particular. Plus, it's gonna be quite annoying to play around that Pilfered because it's gonna pilfer my Furies or armor ups or dexterity buff, and yeah, it's not gonna go as quick, but I wanted to kind of like showcase obviously maybe slightly less perfect fights as well, but still we're definitely not doing bad. We got to level 2 extremely quickly, dropped that one. That Hulk is already at 60%. As soon as I get to my next level 2, I should be able to pretty much finish out that fight or close to. Obviously I do need to bait out this level 2, especially once I triggered Pilfer, because he's really close to 3 bars of power here. But yeah, again, couple of hits in, another level 2 drop, perfect. I did not go for a heavy attack there because obviously he had a bar of power, but still immediately followed by like a 13k medium crit, and then 2 heavy attacks. Unfortunately, none of them crit, but those bleed debuffs are still doing quite significant amount of damage. And yeah, the fight is over, just that simple in Act 6. And I had kind of shelled slightly Warlock. I hadn't been using him as much as I did before, just because like he was at rank 2 and I had a bunch of rank 3 champions, so I quite often chose a different maybe go-to option for things. But now that I had the Suicide Masteries on and I'm using Warlock, man, it's so fun. It's definitely so really fun. I just reminded myself how fun it is to use this guy. And so once again here against Green Goblin, just casually drop my level 2. Obviously, whilst he's infected, he cannot heal, and if he tries to, he's constantly losing power. In addition to all of that stuff, you're shutting down Masochism node that is in this fight here in particular. That I did whiff a heavy attack, which is one of the most unfortunate things with Warlock, that you can occasionally whiff a heavy attack. Now that I dropped a 29k heavy attack crit again, few more hits, and the fight is over. And now we have moved into variant 4, I believe, and these fights have like Spectre and stun immunity, and this is actually one of the more annoying lanes in that quest, especially in chapter 1, because of the Spectre. But obviously, since he's a robot, he isn't healing from willpower, and typically I always hate that about robots. Typically it always it's just flat out annoying when you end up having more chip damage on your robot champions than you normally should in many of the matchups, and you don't have access to that willpower heal. But obviously when you're dealing with Spectre, that's it. It is indeed extremely helpful. And here at this point, I'm going to counter his heavy with a heavy of my own. We can see that dealt significant amount of damage. Unfortunately, he placed Thunderstruck on me, and whilst he's stun immune, there is not too much I could do about it. But yeah, the fight was over quite quickly. We can move on to the next one after a slight loading issue. But yeah, then we're gonna have Joe Fixit and Ultron fights, and towards the end of the video I perhaps will show, as I mentioned before, one of the most important things Warlock is capable of doing. But here I was actually hoping he's gonna roll the heal buff, so that would make the fight so much simpler, so much easier, and so much more interesting, but he didn't. So I can't always get everything you want. And yeah, I have built up to my level 2. I will drop that, bait out level 2 of his, and then try my best to finish out the fight as quickly as possible. So here he somehow did trigger regen, which obviously Warlock shuts down, and the fight is a wrap. So even though, again, you might not have the single most individual huge yellow numbers, even though 50k heavy attack is quite big, he still is able to finish out these fights extremely quickly. I think I will make a slip up in this fight. I don't remember too much, but let's see what happens, because obviously I can't stun Ultron. Ultron is going to get his regen buff, but I should very easily be able to deal with that with the infections and the passive heal block that's so extremely valuable in this game, even at this point. So here was the mistake. He did evade, and I thought I am at a level 2, which I wasn't. And obviously I didn't drop a level 2, I dropped level 1 instead, which was tad unfortunate. So what I'm trying to do now is rush back to my level 2. Luckily he triggers his regen right at this moment as well. I just go for a heavy attack, and once again an absolutely beautiful heavy attack. So let's watch that again. We went from a level 2 straight into a heavy attack crit for 40k, and that's a fairly casual thing. Once again, without any boosts, without any extra attack modifiers or anything of the sort. That fight we also didn't even have a class advantage. And the last thing that I wanted to showcase is that Warlock is actually frequently capable of playing in a manner where opponent never gets to use a bar of power, especially in situations where they have willpower. But here, for a willpower proxy, I'm basically going to use aggression regeneration node, because as long as I don't run out of regen buffs later on, basically he's going to be trying to heal throughout the entire fight, which is exactly what you can basically simulate with Warlock, let's say in Alliance War, because when you parry the opponent, they trigger willpower. When you place a heavy attack bleed on the opponent, it triggers their willpower. They're attempting to heal, but unsuccessfully, and in addition to that, they are obviously also losing their power. And you can pace yourself in a manner where opponent either never reaches or is able to actually use a special attack, just like in this fight. But that is it for today. I hope you guys have enjoyed the video. If you did, hit that like button, hit that sub button, hit all the buttons, and I'm gonna catch you guys soon. See ya.